It's 30 seconds, and I do have a 30-second clip. Do you see it yet? Mm-hmm. Is it coming off of your LinkedIn page?
It says live in the upper left-hand corner. I see the check boxes in the upper right-hand corner too. I think we're live, man.
Nice. All right. So 30 seconds. We'll do 30-second content. What's up, everybody? It's Marc Mac coming back with a new show, The Hump. Happy Hump Day. What's going on, everybody? You know I love the Hump Day. You know I was doing my midweek moment on Wednesday nights, and honestly, it wasn't enough. I couldn't just do 15 minutes. Y'all knew it. I went over. By a minute or 2 minutes, even 3 minutes, maybe 6 minutes. One time I think I was on there for 35 minutes and didn't even realize it. But that's my gift. I love to talk, and I love to bring on people who also love to have conversations and start conversations. As you guys know, that is my tagline. I do start conversations. I can start conversations for you, for him, for her, whoever you want. But I'm going to start a conversation tonight with my man, Kevin Hopp. Let me tell you a little bit really quick. I'm going to give him the floor. But when I first met Kevin, he was dialing on right on LinkedIn, and I had just come from doing the same thing on the Discord, and I thought, wow, this guy, man, he is awesome. He's doing it. He's doing his thing, and we were on the same page because the phone, let's just face it. Look, I know there's a million different ways from Sunday to to go to market, and we're going to talk about some of those things tonight. But at the end of the day, like I was just having a conversation with somebody on a text message, and there was like a miscommunication. And I said, how the hell do you have a miscommunication? You know why you have miscommunication? Because you can't understand each other when you text. And the phone is the prime way to remove all of the confusion, because you could hear the person and you could pretty much feel that person. And if you're face to face, that's even better. But I welcome Kevin Hopp to the show. Kevin, want to give you the floor. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing today, who you are, where you're from, family, everything. Let's 2 minutes. Go for it.
For sure. First things first, Marc Mac, thank you for having me back, man. We've done a few podcasts together. It's always a great chat. You're like my East Coast brother from another mother. I'm out here, San Diego, 2:30 in the afternoon. You're doing this. It's like pitch black dark in New Jersey, right? Like it's a little different. I live here in San Diego. I got my my wife, my 3-year-old daughter, Madison. I got my dog over here. If he barks, that's what he does. That's his only job, and he's actually pretty good at it. I want to get him a new job, but he barks a lot. I run my own small consulting business. It's called Calling Culture. I do consulting, training, advising for B2B tech companies all around kind of what you just said, which is like how to start conversations. A lot of people on LinkedIn lean into one aspect of the game, right? We got our techie people who are all leading towards what's new with AI and how to use Clay and all that good stuff, which we'll talk about today. Then we've got our people that are all about process and structure and RevOps, and they focus on CRM stuff and some of the dialer stuff. Then you got people who lean at the conversation stuff, and people that are really good at cold calling training, but they don't know anything about dialers. They don't know anything about tech. They don't know anything about the process. So my specialty, what makes me kind of weird and geeky, is knowing how to combine these three things into one actionable thing that we can bring to organizations, which is not just, hey, here's some cold calling training. It's not just, hey, I'll help you with RevOps. It's not just, I'm a vendor trying to sell you a tool. I can sit there and talk to you about the tools in the market, what I know about them, the pros, the cons, the general pricing structure, hand you off to the right people at the right time, help you implement the tools, then give your people the training and coaching they need to succeed using the tools. So it's a bit of a unique thing. I don't see many people out there doing what I do.
Yeah. And so Kevin, this consulting obviously, came when did you take that leap? Like what was it that said, oh, like maybe give us a little bit of background on like your previous actual sales experience as an individual
Totally.
contributor maybe to
Yeah.
that other
Okay,
company.
so great question. So I started out my career as the first employee at a startup, like the first employee. It was me and the CEO back to back in a room for a year and a half.
I've
It was
been there.
awesome. It was raw. I got fired when I asked for equity. I was so early. I was 22 years old. I had no idea what was going on. I was making a 1099 salary, not even a real W-2 salary. 1099.
The thing you guys don't know is that was actually only 2 years ago. I'm just kidding.
Oh, dude, I wish. Hold on. Focus. There we go. My camera out of focus? It is.
Yeah, now you're in focus.
We're back.
You're in focus.
So that was true story. I did get fired when I asked for equity because there was no equity to be given out, even though I was the only employee at the company, apparently. Whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Then I got an SDR job. I was only in SDR for 6 months, which is kind of wild. And it's funny, Mark, I was talking to my buddy Oliver earlier today, and he was asking me how I got into this. And I was like, well, I teach SDRs and I build SDR teams, and I've coached over 100 SDRs. I was only an SDR for 6 months. Now, 2024, I mean, the average SDR is like 18 months plus before you can ever expect to get promoted. Like the economics and the market has changed dramatically since when I started out, right? Mm-hmm. I started out at a Series A startup, was an SDR for 6 months, got promoted, got laid off immediately after 3 months. Right. Moved over to a different startup, was an AE there for a year, moved over to corporate America. Corporate America really got me. They said, hey, Kevin, do you like commuting to work? I'm like, no. They said, do you want to stay home, make $15K more in salary, and get an expense account? And I was like, oh, let's go. So I worked in corporate America for a solid year. Everything changed for me when I met a guy named Ryan Reisert. Shout out Ryan Reisert. He showed me how rare it is to be good at cold calling. So I started my career in consulting as a cold caller. That's all it was. Gun for hire. Yeah. Like, hey, I'm pretty good at this stuff. Anybody want to hire me on a fractional basis just to rip dials? And that was 7 years ago, 6-7 years ago. So over time, I've added more and more and more to what I've been capable of doing. Every year, I've launched a venture that failed. It's been awesome, right? So I go through this cycle of like, okay, I get some consulting clients. I do this, I do that. Doing really well. Then I say, okay, I should start a business. And I start a business and it goes really well to a certain point. It crashes and burns for one reason or another. Then I do it again. And I do it again. So I don't know. Here I am. The latest iteration of what I'm doing. I've rebranded from just Hop Consulting Group to something more specific, something that I feel like I want sales leaders to lean forward and say, this is what I'm missing, which is calling culture, right? Making what is old new again. I launched at an interesting time because, we'll get into this. Like very few people right now in sales leadership are thinking, how can I get my people doing old school stuff?
That's right.
They're thinking, how can I get people doing new school stuff? How do I use AI? How do I replace people? How do I do this? There's a lot of questions around that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But that's the long and the short of how I got to where I am today.
Well, what's really wild for me to see you actually launching calling culture as it is, right? Mm-hmm. Is the fact that the very first time I think, or one of the first few times we were doing live cold calls, your opener was, hey John, this is Kevin Hop from Hop Consulting. Did I catch you at a bad time? Whatever it was, right? And then you got to start, right? He was like, nah, no problem, go ahead, and you're like, I'm curious, do you have a calling culture there? Like that was like your question that you used like during those times. And I was like, so when I saw you launch this as the brand, I was like, that's so perfect. I mean, it was like, I was
thinking about it. And I talked to my buddy who's like a big marketer, and he's like, you should try to like rebrand what you do as like a 1 or 2 word, like, this is what I want. You know what I mean? Right. It's a way to get faster brand recognition, get people leaning forward faster, get people, to say yes faster, I feel like. So it's only been a few months as in this brand, and I'm still working on my website and all that, but you can go to the website, everybody, www.culture.com.
Well, I'm glad. So great segue. Got a couple of topics we'll go through, right? To keep
Huh?
it kind of on point here. But talk to me a little bit like, yes, that's the name, and now we know that you're here. But how do we establish a calling culture, and what is like, maybe as you go through it, I'd love to hear a little bit about what's like, because it's something maybe that people, the terminology is not really the semantics that people use
Yeah.
necessarily, like at a VP of sales somewhere at a big company or mid-sized company, whatever. And then so they may say to you, like, what's the biggest question you get when you say those things? I'm just curious. So
Sure.
think about those things when you talk about them.
Totally. So, at its core, establishing a calling culture is not one thing. And now, I'm sorry in advance to all the vendors that are listening to this. They go, wait, no, hold on, I work at a dialer company. You just need this dialer. You need this dialer. That's what you need. No, Kevin, I work at a data company. We sell data. That's what you need. You need the numbers. We got data.
Right.
Oh, no, I work at a RevOps company, and you need this. No, it's not one thing. And that's the problem, is that a lot of vendors are trying to push, like, here's the answer to your pipeline issue. It's this.
Right.
It's not. Okay,
Well,
so it's three things. It's really kind of the three big main areas, which are people. You need people that are trained in how to have cold conversations. They need to have a well-defined process and structure about how they go about getting those conversations, and that involves technology that you need to use to win this game in 2024. People, process, and technology. That is what calling culture is. And most organizations stop at one place or another, right? So the old model, 5, 6, 7 years ago was people. When you had a pipeline problem, you just needed headcount. When I was an SDR, Mark Mac, you know what I was doing? Picking up the freaking phone one at a time and literally going like this. And then they were really nice. I got headsets. So I had my touch tone phone on my freaking desk, and then I had a headset, and I would go ring, 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 ring. And that was how like funded SaaS businesses thought about solving this problem of outbound conversations. So
yeah, just slam people in and out. Like just push people in and out. I mean, it's like get as many people in as you can, and they put the youngest, most inexperienced people on the phone. No offense to you, I just meant like that's what I was seeing. Like when I came over into this industry in 2020, or this sector of the industry, it fascinated me that people didn't use the phone. It fascinated me this like SDR AE model, this what they call specialized role model. And it just like it bewildered me how you could just churn and through things like that. Like for years, I in sales, I never, I always thought that like when you start to build a team, and these are just examples of leaders that I had. Like I worked at companies, not for 3 months. I worked at companies for 9 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
And I did that because, I built momentum as an individual contributor, and I was able to repeat and improve year over year over year. Like I love, we're going to touch on this later, but I love that people say they want, like you look at their resume or you look at their profile, and they were an SDR for a year and 2 months, right? And they were 175% of their target this quarter and 135% of their target last quarter. And first of all, no offense to people who do startups, but there was no precedent before that. So I don't know what you like. It's great. You did really great work, but then you left the company. So you never repeated it. Like every year at Sherwin-Williams, when I worked as a territory manager, like beating the street really, as they called it, pounding the pavement, not to get the job, but as the job. And I would have to every year go up another 7, 8, 10, 15, 18%, and it was like, and I did it year over year. And I repeated it. That's like a body of work that you could say, I'm really good at that job, or I know how to do this well and scale it. And yet I look at these resumes and I see a year here, 6 months here, 3 months there, 4 months there, 8 months there. How do you even it's amazing. And so, but I was thinking you were going to, maybe you would get into this, but like for me, what I've envisioned calling culture, what people in these companies have a problem with is, there is no culture about using the phone. as the primary means, as a way to really establish what you need to be doing in go to market. Insofar as like I can't, people send out emails and then they think, oh, maybe it's being picked up, maybe it's not, maybe I got to use Smart Lead, I got to use these tools. And I agree, if you're sending out tons and tons of tools and you have a huge team, or tons and tons of emails and you have a huge team, you definitely need tools like that, right? But your email can get through to somebody. They may never answer it, they may never reply. That doesn't mean they didn't see it and it resonated with them. And that's why I keep my things together, meaning like my email text, my content in the email is exactly how I sound on the phone, so that when I'm talking to them, they say they don't know why they're on the phone with me. They don't understand like why they might be on the phone. They're listening and they're like, this sounds familiar. I don't know why it sounds familiar. And then like I take them through my process, through my call, and then they all of a sudden they go, did you send me an email or something like that? Like I've already booked a time or something, and they're like, yeah, I got an email from somebody. Or, did I get an email from you? I think I got and then it dawns on them. And then that's how I know that when you have to do all these things together, right? You got to do email, you got to do LinkedIn, you got to do all these, everything kind of feeds off of each other, right? But the phone, when it comes down at the end of the day, you can't be afraid. So like cultures that are built in teams, large and small, the problem is nobody's like really demanding they should use the phone. They're letting them get away with it, in some cases, I think. And the culture that I think that needs to be is that you use the phone first.
Exactly. So it's easier than ever before to say, whoa, why would I call them? I haven't put their company through ChatGPT yet. I don't know their priorities. Hey, we haven't looked them up on my intelligence tool. We don't know if they've been to our website yet. We don't know if they're showing intent. Mark, I can't pick up the phone. What if they don't have any intent? I mean, the amount of tools that try to replace so much of this, like just go freaking talk to them. Go have the conversation, right? And then that is, you hit it. Like I gave the technical definition of like what I do. But at the end of the day, calling culture is the idea that you are confident in what you want to say, how to say it, and then what needs to happen in a conversation. Therefore, you pick up the phone. You prioritize. Okay, I want to figure out what's going on in this account with these people. I'm gonna actually pick up the phone and call them. And for many, many people out there, the thing that gets in the way is that, oh God, pick up what if they're busy? What if they say that they're not interested? Oh my God, and they get so upset, right? So my whole methodology is built around trying to lower that heart rate down so that you are calm, cool, collected, and having conversations.
Well, there's some extracurricular types of things chemically that could help you do that, but we're not going to talk about those things tonight. No, it's so true. And look, I gotta say, and I know you wouldn't ever say this hasn't happened to you, but that nervousness or that pit or that little bit of hesitation, I'm in sales 30 years, and every once in a while, at the beginning of the day or beginning of a call session, it happens. It does happen. I look at a lead and I go, let me call the guy. Like I almost was like, I looked at it, I saw like some people I talked to in his company, and I went through that thing in my head, like giving myself an excuse not to call him. And I said, why am I doing that? That's so stupid. And I called him. Right? I called him and I had a great conversation. It's just like you people and the reason why I'm saying, like, even somebody like me who I guess in our circles is considered to be pretty good at what he does on the phone. Not to pat myself on the back, but it's I think even me, I do get that a little bit. It's not an unusual thing. It's an emotional thing. It means that I'm passionate. It means that you take your job seriously. You're supposed to feel that way sometimes, right? But the ways in which you can build, talk to me about the ways in which you help them build that confidence so that calling culture is really coming through.
So that's where you blend the three things. I think that one of the biggest problems with cold calling in general is that people think of it as one-on-one. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call Marc back. which is good, but it's always going to, if you pick up your phone and you go, da, 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 your brain's going to start telling you stories and gaslighting you into thinking, well, I know I have to call him, my quota, I need this meeting, and then all of a sudden you're all anxious and nervous about it, right? So the thing that I do that helps organizations really get over the hump with that, and I get reps that are very, very junior, 21, 22 years old that set 6-7 meetings a week because they have figured out what they can control and they're letting go of what they can't. But we have to put a system in front of them that delivers conversations on a reliable basis, right? Mm-hmm. It's about the way you build your lists. It's about the tool that you put the lists into. It's about talking on the beat, right? It's about getting rhythmically set and established with the tool set that you have so that you just know you're showing up to have conversations. The individual nature of cold calling is what you just said, that pitter patter, like that, that struggle. I try to remove that. Like if you, because I don't think that it's easy to win. And you know who wins in that individual thing, which, any rep watching right now is going to go, oh, I fucking hate that. You know who wins every time this happens? Your sales manager, your leader, your VP. They go, look, guys, we need more calls. We are so short of the number. How hard is it? Pick it up. Pick up the phone. Do it. And then you say, well, all right, Mr.
You do it.
Can you show us? And he goes, yeah. Here you go. Hey, yeah, Bob. Yeah. This is Steve, VP of Sales over at Acme Corp. How you been? Oh, yeah. Well, we help people like you. We got some great stuff. I'd love to show it to you, Bob. 20 minutes, Bob. You got 20 minutes for me? And then Bob looks because he bullied him into a meeting because he's the VP of Sales.
Yeah.
The VP of Sales walks out of the room. I've seen this. I've seen it 6-7 times where leaders do it big time and try to show reps like, look, if you got a big ass ego like mine, it's not hard to cold call. Come on, Johnny.
Yeah.
That's not possible if you're 22.
You got to be able to.
If you're 24.
If you're not going to be, this is my theory on that. Like, I know there's a ton of sales managers out there that are leading teams, and at the end of the day, regardless of their company, the way they're structured, where they are, what stage they're in, whatever, there are definitely ones that have gone through may not have gone through the role or the ranks, or have not maybe been on the phone, right? But the way you described them shouldn't be how they act, right? They should put their guys or gals in front of somebody like you or me, and allow somebody to actually coach them instead of taking that role and half-assing it, right? They would do themselves. Look, $500 for the hour, you hire me, and I guarantee you I can give them 3 or 4 pointers that they're just by listening to some of their calls, and it'll change the game for them, for lack of a better way to say it. I know I was talking about inane words that I was using that everyone's tired of, but it would literally change the game. I'll give you an example. It's funny that the old school, like just all this, not old school already, but it's these things that keep people from using the phone and building pipeline that way and so on is just the way they view it, right? But it's always a leadership down thing, right? Like you said, we need more, not better. Like I'm working with a client right now who actually every week keeps saying to us, we need more, right? But what we keep focusing them on is, look, how many are actually you're moving to opportunities into qualification stages? Like we're using our tools, like you're talking about, to get you closer, to get you more qualified meetings. Like a lot of the meetings that I've had with them, like this week, right? They were like, these were great meetings, right? And so, that's the idea behind it. It's not about, like years ago, it was about get 10 meetings a day, so you have 50 a week, so that you could show pipelines, so that they can get another seed invest, or they can get another round of investments of 75 million, because they're showing that these companies that we're booking, which half of them don't show up to, is a pipeline. You can't call a nothing pipeline until you're like send out a contract is what I'm saying, the way I see it, proposal stage. That's maybe pipeline is an opportunity you've demoed, but now if you're talking about with them about, who's the next step and who's that stage, I call that now you have some stuff in the pipeline. But up here, top of funnel, that's not pipeline. People always say that, I booked 75 meetings, so that's 400,000 in ARR. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's nothing to do with that. Right. So calling culture, it definitely starts, of course, with management and leaders. And even if they don't know how to train or do it, they should know where to get it. Right. And that's why I started things like this and Tuesday Night Tech, just to let people know that you can get help out there. And just the other day, I was traveling yesterday to Ohio. I went to a show in Ohio, and I had dinner at a place called the Avenue in Columbus, right? In I forget the area exactly, but downtown Columbus, and great restaurant, great steakhouse, very New York style, which is what I was looking for. I saw the red cabana seats on the website. I was like, I'm there. Uber, $12, boom, right?
Yeah.
Because my boss, he decided not to meet me, so I bought a $80 steak. Anyway, so I'm sitting there and and I'm talking to this guy. Just happened to be sitting next to me. I'm on the end of the bar, and he's there with his wife and some other guy, and he happened to be a salesman. Lives in Arlington, Upper Arlington, which is a very wealthy area. So perhaps he's successful. And the one question I asked him, he goes, he goes, these kids these days, they send 200 emails and nobody responds. He goes, I sit down, I make 20 phone calls, I talk to 18 people,
Those are crazy numbers. That's true. Those are crazy numbers.
I was like, good for you. Yeah. I said, he probably was exaggerating a little bit, but I get where he was coming from. He was just talking about how the phone is being underused, right? And I asked him, I said, and here's my tip, and we'll get into this also into the next segment here. But I said, how do you? Because you said earlier about some of the new things and are really looking back at using some of the old ways, right? And so here's one of those, and I think this was important because the biggest and most the biggest habit that everybody has when they call as a cold caller is they say, "Hi, I'm Mark from," in my case, Carrot. "Hi, I'm Mark from Carrot."
Yeah.
Right? "Hi, I'm John from so-and-so. I'm Mark from LinkedIn. I'm this one." And unless you're Google or Yahoo or something that everybody knows, what is the point of you saying your company name? Right?
Well,
when you say your company name, if you come across a leader who says, "Oh, my guys aren't getting enough, conversations to get hung up in the first 5 seconds," that's because they can't get over the first 5 seconds. There's a lot of reasons why they probably aren't. I can't hear the calls. Obviously, I'd have to hear the calls and go through with them. But my very first thing I would tell them sight unseen is stop saying your company name. Why? Because when you introduce yourself as, "Hey, this is Mark Mack. How's it going today?" Guess what they're going to say? "It's going well, thanks. How are you?" Even if they say who from where, that's fine. That still gives me they don't know who I am yet, so they haven't put me in any box. But once you say your company name, my thought process, and once this changed in my head, everything changed. Once I stopped saying it, right, I realized that when you say your name of your company, right, you're actually or immediately be put it into a salesperson box or a company box, or this person is trying to tell me something or sell me something, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But they put you in some kind of box, whatever that box means to them. And now you're like, okay, I have to say something really relevant. I have to be really persuade or kind of finesse it here to get them to move through. So I say, "Well, I'm from this company and we do this," or I just wanted to reach out to you, make sure whatever your next line is, right? But you're backpedaling already. They're already thinking, how quickly can I get you off the phone, right? And so I think that, and this has led me to this part of the show, which is I think it's a misconception that you have to say your company name, right? I have booked hundreds of meetings without ever telling them my company name before I book the meeting, ever.
Interesting. Like you don't even mention it during the conversation.
No, I mentioned it during. I'm saying like I've booked meetings right? Without actually, like, before I've ever, like, I've booked a meeting where I talk about the problem. I talk about, what's going on in their world. I introduce a problem illumination. I say, do you struggle with that? Whatever. Yeah, that's part of, sometimes. No, maybe, yes, whatever. Oh, we have this, we have that, we have this in place of that, whatever. Right? We get into it. And then I say, oh, okay. So let me ask you a question. If you had a way in which that problem and that problem can be solved and make it easier for you to do this, this, and the other thing, would it be worth a few minutes of your time to take a look at?
Yeah.
Yes, great. Let me send you an email. My name is Mark. I'm with a company called whatever, right? Like, I never said my company name because why? What is the difference? Half the time, first of all, why face the battle of, oh, what company are you from? Oh, I'm from, again, like, if they know your company, it's different, right? Like, if you only have two competitors in the market, you might as well say your company name. They might know who you are, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know what they know about your company or what they think about your company. So why even go down that path? Like, I had an argument, not an argument, but it was more of like a text message. I think it was with either Jason Bay or something like that. We were going back and forth about, like, what it will, if you can then address it with them so you can change their misperception of you. You're not changing no misperception of anybody on anything, and not on a cold call. They're not. If they know something about you, it is what it is. You're not going to be able to change that. Can you change it? Can you be persuasive enough to change it? Maybe it's a misconception, and you can actually explain yourself out of it. Maybe, but why go there? Why walk that minefield? Right? Like, I'd rather them buy from me. Right? We're always talking about trying to be more personable and more human. What's more human than hey, Kevin, this is Mark. What's going on, man? Oh, what's going on, Mark? What's going on? How are you today? Oh, I'm great. Yeah, Kevin, listen, I've recently been working with some folks like yourself. I found that, like, this is some of the challenges that they have. I was just curious if maybe that's something that was challenging you as well. If not, I'd certainly love to know how you solved it. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we don't have that problem anymore. Or yeah, we have that problem, right? And you just get into a conversation.
Getting right into it. Yeah.
So my first misconception is that you have to say your name, and you don't. They might ask you. They're going to ask you, where are you from? And usually I'm saying now, like, oh, I'm with MSI. I'm sure you probably don't know stuff. Oh, I know you guys. You guys, this. And I'm like, oh, shit, really? Oh, cool. Big deal. I'm past it already, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I saw this gal posted on LinkedIn about the way she does openers or whatever and stuff, and I'm like, oh, you work at Sales Loft? Okay. You work for a company that has owned by private equity, and everybody in the whole market knows who you are. Maybe not going to go down this road because we love everybody, right? Everyone love everybody. But there are some cold calling influencers, Mark Mack, that have worked for one, maybe two companies in their entire career. And they were there for a long period of time. And then they come out and they author a book on cold calling.
We know who they are. Look, I get it. And when I first came in this industry, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, right? With respect to that. You said something earlier, which I'm going to bring back up. You said, oh, I started this and I failed. I started that and I failed. I started this and I failed. And now I'm doing something else. That's okay, right? Like, I think there was a post a while back we both were talking on about, like, if you haven't failed, you haven't really, succeeded, honestly, in some senses, right? But I don't take it away from those people that they did good work. They did hard work, grind work, at the time that they did it, because they were under that PR kind of model, and they was they were forced because of the VCs, and they did put up the numbers, and God bless, they did what they were told to do, and they did what they wanted to do also on top of what they were told to do in order to make more money and excel, right, and get promoted and what have you. And I don't take that away from them. But what I do definitely, what does resonate with what you just said is can they teach other people to do it? I don't think, maybe, in some cases, but they don't. They haven't been down the path of, they hadn't failed. They really hadn't. Like, if you were Gong back in 6 years ago, I mean, come on, dude. Between 2020, between 4 years ago, 5 years ago, if you were at Gong or Chorus or Zoom Info or whatever, I mean, come on, dude. You were setting meetings like I was, eating M&Ms,
Yeah,
Like,
because some of those people have turned into influencers where they're like, let me teach you my sales stuff. Let me teach you this down. I'm like, all right, man, you worked for a category leading company, and it's like no one gets fired for buying Gong. No one gets fired for buying Salesforce. No one gets fired for renewing IBM. It's the old saying, right? Like,
that's right.
that's one
Well,
form of sales. But what you and I have done a lot of, which is working for the nobody companies, trying to help the nobody companies, you have to get much more fundamentally strong.
Mhm.
You can't lean on brand, and there's no brand to lean on. It's just you and that freaking phone. You got to have people, process, technology dialed in to get the conversations going, learn from the conversations, advance that ball, and then set some meetings.
Yeah. What do you think that is the biggest misconception that people think a cold call should be? Like, what is a cold call? What is supposed to happen on a cold call? Like, what do you think? And I like to call them unique calls. Unique.
Yeah. I'd say the biggest misconception that people think about cold calls, like specifically the way you phrase that, like, what should a cold call be? A pitch. It's a pitch. Like, cold calling is just advertising, right? It's like I've seen sales leaders call it telemarketing, and I'm like, ugh, like I want to tear my eyeballs out and rip my ears off. Like,
I want to pause you there for a second because you brought him up earlier, Ryan Reiser. He and I are also acquaintances, friends, if you will. We've had some conversations, and we've had a lot of back and forths on posts and things. And he used to call me telemarketer, right? And he was like my uncle, trying to prove to me 1 and 1 + 1 = 3. Like he was like, Mark, do you use the phone? Do you market yourself or anybody else's goods? Well, then you're a telemarketer, aren't you? It's a telephone and it's telemarketer. And like, he just like ripped me a new one. And we go back and forth. If you ever see us like on posts, he'll say it to me. I'll just go, yes, I'm a telemarketer. And it took me a while. Like, I didn't like to say that. But now I just we joke about it. But, in theory, when I think of telemarketer I think of, like the big call center of people, and, that's, selling some hand wash or something,
Like, here's the other hot take that we could talk about for a minute. Like, I've gotten a lot of flack on LinkedIn for basically saying that I am a cold calling coach, trainer, and consultant that does not take cold calls. Fucking weird, right? Like, why don't I? Because when my phone rings and I'm doing something, like I'm on a live with Marc Mac, or anything I'm doing client work, I'm doing research, I'm working with my content team on LinkedIn stuff, I'm doing whatever. Sure. If I'm doing something, which I'm doing something 90% of the day, I look down. If I don't recognize that number, I send it directly to voicemail 95% of the time. And if it says spam likely, I do that and then I block it. If it says telemarketer, I do that and then I block it. The iPhone makes it 2 clicks to get to the block. My block list is 2,000 numbers long. I get way less cold calls than most people. Now, I take 1 in 100 calls that come to me that are ice cold. And the ones that I will reply to are ones that are generally followed up by a social touch, or they leave a voicemail. It's very specific. I'm also not a buyer, all right? Like, I'm not like, I run a small consulting company. I'm not like, an executive that does 100 million a year where, look, a cold call could be legit and it could actually save me money, solve a problem, all that. For me, I got a small universe. So that's why I don't take cold calls. But me saying I don't take cold calls, a lot of people are like, oh, you're a hypocrite, you're this and that. And the way I look at it is it's karma. Golden rule. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Like, if I'm calling a guy like me to sell me something, dude, I don't want to be calling me. I want to be calling the right person. You know what I mean? And if they're busy, I don't want them to pick up the goddamn phone. I don't want them.
Why does that? I posted that on Friday, right? Like, why I call this person and they pick up and they're at the bar. I mean, they're clearly at a bar. I mean, it's like, dude. And then you struggle to hear me. Let me go outside. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh man, this guy's gonna go outside. I'm like, do you smoke? Are you just going outside for a cigarette? Because I'm not going to. But if he goes outside for a cigarette, I'm going to actually now talk to him because now it's quiet. But like in the bar, why did you pick up the phone, right? I think if you pick up the phone, this is bottom line is if you pick up the phone, you've given me the right to talk with you. Now, if you're going to be rude and hang up on me, and people have done that, it still happens to me all the time. That's okay. That's just who you are. That's just maybe I caught you at a bad time. And 99% of the time, they won't remember if you call them back even the next day or a couple of days later, right? But I think, the other problem that people have with cold calls is they think they have to going back to like, this whole PR thing and the churn and burn stuff, that you have to set a meeting, right? And, I've been talking a lot about this with folks like Sean Cease and He and I, but it's a data curation event, those kinds of things, and I'll mention it again in a second. But ideally, you don't have to set a meeting. You could disqualify somebody. You could walk away from them and just listen to what they're saying and hear that they're not ready right now, and then now you have an opportunity to, like we say, live to call another day, right? And like you have this opportunity now that you can go back and talk to them. And I think that's also a huge misconception, that I have to set a meeting, or I have to get it into, I got to get them into something. I got to sell them on a meeting, or I got to sell them on the next time I want to talk to them, and I'm like, just have a conversation.
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely agree. So here's my other take on that, though, which is important. I think it's important. The concept of using cold calls simply to move the ball down the field and have it be like a data curation event, I would say is like, most organizations are struggling to get to cold calling level 1 or 2. Like that's like level 10. That's like that's a very advanced, very mature, very, very like almost esoteric way of thinking of cold calling, that you need to have a well thought out and well understood structure all the way around your organization in order to really accomplish that.
Well, I think yes and no. Yes, what I'm trying to get at is more of like just this. Don't get me wrong. Look, when I get a pickup, my end goal, I have 3 or 4 levels of goals, right? My end goal initially, obviously, is to see if this person has got something a problem that we can solve.
Problem needs to be solved. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then the next step's like, oh, are they ready to talk about it now?
Right.
And then what I'm getting at is the people who are so pressed to set that meeting because of whatever reason, be it top down influence, pressure, just motivation, that too, obviously is not a bad thing. But just to get there and say, like when you get to that and you say, oh, they have a problem, there's another step, right? Just because they have the problem that you solve doesn't mean they're ready to talk about it right now. Mm-hmm. Right? So people think that, let me try to pitch a time here because they obviously have the problem, right? And then you can determine whether or not they're ready. That also maybe leads you to believe whether or not they're ready to talk about it if they start to push back there. So it's not, that's always the goal, is to find out, can we have another conversation? Mm-hmm. Are you ready to have that next conversation, for that matter? Like, I talked to somebody today. It's weird. They're all in the same boat. They're all waiting on these like federal money contracts, and we could talk to them today. Why does one person want to talk to me today and get their work out of the way, where the other one's waiting for the contract, before they can move forward on our end? So it's like, you don't know when someone's going to be ready. So that other person, I could have coerced her or pushed her into setting the meeting now, even though she doesn't have contract in hand and she's not ready, right? Because my part of it is just getting her ahead of the ball game so that as soon as that contract comes through, she can submit the order, right? So we're just basically filling out the order with her and making sure we're getting the deal like that way, right? And so I want to get her in the meeting, but if I push too hard, they're going to be like, they never done business with us before, right? They're just going to look at that as like, you're trying to push, and like it turns people off. So I guess that's where I was going with, just that you think you have to set a meeting. Like, I'm always trying to set a meeting, don't get me wrong, right? But you got to like take a step back when you hear certain things. And I think some people just are blind, and they become oblivious to really listening to the people's tone and what they're saying. Because sometimes it's just how they say it. They're hesitating a little bit. And if you don't recognize those things and you push, and then you sit back and you go, oh, well, why didn't I get that one? Right? It's because you're not listening,
Well, I mean, that's part of the magic of having a really good process, is you can depressurize these conversations and not need it. The unfortunate truth, like, it's really hard to pitch. I've tried it a few times to pitch a model of compensation for SDRs where you don't emphasize meetings, because that like at the root of that problem, Marc, is I need the fucking meeting because I need to hit my quota and I'm a top performer and it's like it's commission breath. It's me. That's why reps like, screw the pooch on what could have been, give it time, patience, and more effort, a really good meeting, a really good opportunity. Like, people burn it because it's a self-centered goal, because we're incentivizing sort of the wrong sort of stuff. But drawing that into a compensation plan that maps back to revenue. I've taken a spin at it once or twice, and the businesses did not bite on it. They did not want to do a conversation quota as opposed to a meeting set quota.
But in your consulting with this company, though, right? And the whole idea of trying to help them build that calling culture, helping them understand why incentive-based behavioral modification, is what salespeople are like. That's the cloth we're cut from. Like, if you tell me that, I will pay you more if you do this, I mean, that's just pure biology. Like why, who's not going to go, oh, I can do that, do more of that then? Yeah, absolutely. Right. But, not at the risk of, the brand, or that kind of thing. Like, that's what and I'm not going to bring this up, but like name names, but there are certain companies we know who really have disturbed a lot of people, data companies who have disturbed a lot of people with their sales tactics and how they go to market. And they blew up, and they were huge, and the owner was, I
know who you're talking about.
Yeah, whatever. Anyways, Ohio. Anyway, so yeah, and like, but so many people left their company. You know how many people I interviewed, guys who were like, you're not going to believe like what the culture's like over there. Like there's people that actually would talk about that culture that doesn't breed good things, and certainly they had a calling culture, but not the right type of calling culture, right?
No.
So I want to jump into just a couple of my biggest cold call tip, like I said recently, and I'm pushing this on everybody, is stop saying your company name.
Yeah.
You don't need to say your company name. I guarantee, I can't tell you how much I guarantee you will have exponentially longer conversations. And that's what we used to talk about getting reps, right? So now you can use things like Connect and Sell and Nooks and whatever to get you more connects in an hour and what have you. So those are good, and they're definitely a good part of the culture too. But I think the problem that people have still, even with that, like you said, make sure you're talking on the beep, right? Which is very important. Otherwise the delay, and then they'll hang up. We get that. But what about what they say right after it? And then they're always, people are always in this backpedal because you say a company name and everyone thinks immediately you're trying to sell them something. And why? Like, why go there? Now, I'm not saying everybody does that, right? But probably 50%. Now, you might actually be able to get over the hump, right? You might be able to say whatever you say to continue the conversation. But that's the first hurdle that you could completely eliminate, because it's a mind thing. It's a psychological thing. You say your company name, they know you don't know them. They know. That's why, like, honestly, I don't really like this, but like people who say, hey, John, this is Mark, have you been? Like, I'm not a fan of have you been, because that just implies you know them from somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Like, you just as simply say, hey, this is Mark Mack. How's it going today? They're still thinking, like, do I know Mark Mack? And then I usually follow that up with, well, you don't know me, but I was calling for a specific reason. And I might insert a PBO right there. Do you have a sec? Mm-hmm. I don't say anything fancy, funny, quirky, like 27 seconds.
My least favorite. This is a cold call. Do you want to hang up? It's my least favorite.
Yes, click.
I never use that one.
Yeah, that's the PBO failure, right? Any PBO, a complete PBO failure is as soon as if you're asking a yes or no question in some way, shape, or form, and they say no and they hung up. It's happened to me. Don't get me wrong. And I disposition that record in Salesforce as PBO failure. There's actually a drop down, and it says PBO failure was the reason code for that dropped call, because it was. And now I'm able to go back and see how many times I've had a failure with that relative to actually success, more success, But I don't say those things because they don't matter, right? What you're trying to do is get more time with this person, at least 3 minutes, right? Or you said 6 to, I think you said on a post, I was just listening to you, by the way, I do my deep dive on you before we meet, something about 6 minutes or 4 to 6 minutes or something like that, right? So, but I bet you if that's the average good sales cold call that actually results in maybe a meeting set. But I bet you the average sales call, like the median time with all the ones that are only 15 seconds, is probably 45 seconds.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, the true average, not just the winning calls.
Right. And so with that, it's like I'm always trying to find just a way to open the call with something other than something that's going to put me in a box with them in their head. Now,
Sure.
They get in the box and now they're saying, well, I don't have time for this sales call, even though they may need to be sold, right? We don't know that yet, right? That doesn't preclude you from trying to, still reading the room, so that'd be my second cold call tip. And you and I have talked about this, is you have to read the room. Do you struggle through noise in the background? I've done it. I've tried it. Sometimes 90% of the time it doesn't work because they're just ultimately not hearing you, not listening. I've literally had, and I don't know where this is coming from lately, but people pick up the phone and don't say anything. Like you're calling them and they pick up the phone and all you hear is the webinar going on their computer. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, like, who does that?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I don't even say hello anymore if they do that. I just hang up. Like if I hear that in the background, I just hang up. I don't even say hello. Like if you're not going to say hello, like you answered the phone. You're supposed to say hello. Like
there's a deep curiosity. People have this deep curiosity around things that they don't know, right? So that's why people answer the phone. It comes from like a, like an ancient part of our brain that that has a curiosity that's insatiable. Mm-hmm. People that don't answer those numbers have the knowledge of most of the time this isn't good for me. This most of the time this doesn't work for me. But some people, I mean, and you can vouch for this. This guy who's called a lot of lists. If you call that same list and for some reason you forget to take, Bob out of the list after you talk to him, people who pick up the phone.
Oh yeah, they'll pick up again, right? Exactly.
It's always the people you don't want to talk to that pick up the phone again. And you're like, oh, damn! Like I forgot to
Marc,
last time, or the system failed, or whatever it is. But people who pick up the phone again and again, which is like
Marc, we talked last week. You don't remember?
Crazy psychology that people will just always. There's some people out there that are just always going like, I'm in this meeting. I'm closing on my house. My wife and I are signing the papers, and my phone rings, and I go, oh, hold on, notary, 1 second. I know I have to sign right here. Hello, who's this? Dude, why do you pick up the phone? What's going on?
Yeah. So, why do they pick up the phone in dinner time? I love the guys who pick up the phone and they go, why are you calling me? I'm sitting down at dinner with my family. You picked up, dude.
Oh, man. Yeah.
That's my fault.
I got two. I'll go on either side of the call, right? Either side of the call. The first one, when it comes to openers, I always lead with a PBO. That's just me. It's my style. So I've always preached. It's always worked very well. The PBO is focused on avoiding a concept that I call the false negative. What's the false negative? The false negative is when you don't lead with the PBO. You do kind of the show up and throw up maneuver, where as soon as you acknowledge, yeah, what's up? How's it going, Kevin? I just go, yeah, so Bob, I'm with da-da-da-da. We do da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And you get with the hang up during your pitch, or, hey, Marc, thanks for the call. I'm not interested. Boop. Now, that's what I call the false negative, because it is a false negative indication of interest at the end of the day. We did not understand anything we didn't know about them, right? One of the other things I teach reps is look at your lead list. No one on this list is interested. If they were, they'll call you. They're not going to call you. So do not take I'm not interested as gospel when they tell it to you. If you get that early in a conversation, it's a false negative indication of interest. It doesn't have anything to do with what's really going on in their company. Your job is to have a conversation with them to learn something about what they are doing to solve the challenges and problems that we can then say they're not interested because they just bought the solution and signed a 3-year agreement 2 months ago and they're in implementation. We should take them out of all of our ABM for a while.
Yeah.
Right? That's my tip for the front end. Always use a PBO. Always try to clear the elephant in the room, which is you're a stranger. Why do you want to talk to them? Who are you? Why are you calling? Tip for the end of a call, right? When you're trying to go for the close, I never use the word demo. That's just me. Some people say, they say we're doing a product demo, we're doing this, we're doing that. I actually went through a sales training when I was a sales rep that you should always end by closing for an hour and telling them it's a technical demo. On cold calls, And this trainer was like adamant that that's how you do it. So you schedule these hours. And our meeting booked rate across the team went from this to this.
Yeah. I was going to say that.
Hours, but then these hours would be a waste of freaking time because you cannot go from a cold interaction of 2 minutes to a sit down hour.
No.
The close is a high level conversation. The close is an open-minded discussion. The close is scheduling another time to talk when it's not an ambush.
That's correct.
That's what we close for. We lower the effort on the close, and you will get more conversations. You'll get more people to book because they don't have this psychological thing of like, well, I don't need to buy right now. I'm not saying you need to buy. We really uncovered all the reasons why we should even talk to each other. But a cold call is not the place to do that. Let's schedule time to just chat for one side and sit down and talk to another.
Absolutely agree with that. We use the term, we say this like, I've been using like, hey, John, after I'll get through like, a couple of the back and forth about whatever problems that might happen. Right. And if there is a real need or real problem there, a real pain, I'll say, great. Well, John, let me ask you if this aside, if you could find a way to solve that problem, would it be good for the business?
Yeah.
Right. And they say, yeah, it would be great for the business. How would it impact the business? Oh, it'd be awesome for the business. Great. Well, listen, I caught you off guard today. So why don't we do this? Let's schedule a time that's a bit more convenient for you where we can actually sit down high level, right? Talk a little bit more about some of these pains and how we might actually go about solving it. And at the end of that call, you could determine whether or not you want to keep the conversation going. And I know a lot of people don't like this line, or we part ways as friends. And that takes the onus off of them. And, the other thing too, you mentioned is also like the decision thing, right? A couple of really big objections you get a lot of times is, I'm not the decision maker, or we're not ready to make that kind of decision, or I don't make those kinds of decisions. I only influence those decisions, whatever it is, right? And I say to them, look, man, I'm not looking for you to make a decision, right? All I'm looking to do is understand a little bit more about that pain, give you a little bit more information about how we might go about solving it, so you could determine whether or not it's worthwhile even bringing John, your CFO, into this meeting, right? Yes. Because at this point, I don't even know if we can help you. I need to understand a little bit more, and I'm sure you probably want to learn a little bit more about us. And so why don't we just schedule some time? And I don't say why don't we, or I shouldn't say that actually. Usually I'd say, let's do this. A little bit more persuasive, right? Yeah. Let's do this, right? Like what a lot of times we are doing when we pitch meetings as SDRs, what I've heard in the past and calls that I've listened to and trained people away from is, when they get to the point of pitching the time, they're like, what I'd love to do is set you up with my AE, Tom, and then he can actually walk you through the platform. And then, you could see if that's something worthwhile. How does your schedule look like for 3:00 tomorrow? Like there's no, like you're not giving a point to him meeting, right? You're pushing him away. He's just getting to know you for the 45 seconds that you've been talking to him. And now all of a sudden you're going to push him off to somebody else. And so that's another thing I like to do on my cold calls is internalize it. Like, for example, we're working for a software company right now, one of our clients, and my pitch is something like where I say, hey, I'm actually shadowing. You'd be surprised. It's a lot of words that people get triggered by. And I find that people get triggered by, like when you go into your pitch, you say something like, I work with a lot of people like you, right? Or I work with a very similar organization as yours. When you use the word work, you're immediately a sales guy. I'm sorry, I'm telling you this right now. You're immediately a company that's trying to sell them something. Just like I said before with saying your company name. So what I've done is I've changed to saying things like in this particular case, it's a field service software, and I say, you know what, John, service manager, I'm actually shadowing right now a couple of the service managers at a very similar organization, you guys in the power gen space, and here, some of the problems that I've actually seen them facing is this X, Y, Z, right? And then I say shadow or partner with, and it just relaxes them. Right? It's a psychological thing. Instead of saying I work with, because it's been overused. It clearly has, right? And when I hear it on a call, it immediately go, oh, you're working with them. Oh, that means they're paying you. I don't have any money, right? Especially if you're not talking to the DM, right? And so again, it's like that first call. It's not about closing. It's not about selling. It's not about getting them into a demo. It's finding out whether or not the demo is even worthwhile, right? I mean, that's just it.
It's going from 0 to 1. That's how, very, very similar technique I teach to what you just talked about, which is when someone says, hey, I'm not the guy. I say, hey, look, I'm trying to go from 0 to 1. We're not talking to anyone at your organization. We don't understand the way that you're thinking about this problem. The point of this call is just to understand how you're thinking about it. And guess what? Worst case scenario, you learn something new about a new vendor in the space that's doing something very different. Best case scenario, you bring this to your boss, you look great. Like,
yeah.
Before, and people go, well, I might have a few minutes on, this week's really busy though. It's always funny. They got to reinsert the ego part of like, well, I can't take the meeting. Well, I'm just so busy. I'm so busy. I'm like, okay. How about next Tuesday, 1:00? Does that work for you? And then we get to a point.
Yeah, I work with one of my clients actually was interviewing a candidate to build his SDR team. I mean, we're working as SDRs for him and doing some coaching. And so he was telling me about an interview he was having with an incoming SDR, potentially SDR, and she, he would run through some scenarios to kind of ascertain her cold calling skills or her grit or whatever. And he mentioned something that she uses. She gave him like a couple of lines, and I've actually adopted it because I think it's fantastic. And it's a little bit about what I said earlier. It's like, listen, it's a way to calm them down on that call that they think they need to have, that you're pitching to them, that they think they need to make a decision on. We're not even there yet, right? Especially if you're selling an enterprise product, decisions. It's like it's going to be 18 meetings before a fucking decision is going to be made. But everybody, when you call them cold, they think that you're looking for them to make a decision for some reason. We're not.
Yeah. It's like, right? You're reaching into their pocket every time. It's like, calm down.
Exactly. We wish you could say that, right? Never say calm down to somebody because they get more pissed off, right? But the thing is that she said, so now I include it sometimes, and it's like, hey, listen, I'm not looking for you to make a decision. Listen, all I'd like to do for this call is I like to call it an if call, right? Yeah. After a few minutes of us talking, if you determine whether or not you think your pain, you think the pain is enough, and maybe we have a chance at solving it, then we'll move to the how. We'll show you how we can do it, right? Maybe on the next call. But this call is just an if call. It's somehow how she laid that up, right? And I thought that was brilliant. And it really kind of made me think about, like, at those moments where that objection has been very difficult for years to overcome, and it's what it is. What you have to find is these you called it like 8-miling them. Like, you try to anticipate they're going to say this, so you nip it in the bud before it happens. And we could talk for days about that in different parts of the call and the cycle and different rebuttals. But ideally, what's happening is you're somebody will say that, and you're just, again, you're backpedaling, right? So what do? Like, you're always trying to prove to them why they should. You should prove to them why they should meet with you, right? But you haven't established that yet, so it doesn't really matter, right? Like, and so it's kind of funny when you just take that away from them. Oh, we don't need to make a decision. You don't need to make a decision. I'm not looking to make a decision. In fact, I want to learn from you because you're in the trenches where really the problem is. And this way I can understand how to talk to your boss, right? And I could tell you want these changes to happen, but if you can arm me with the information when I sit down with your boss, I might be able to actually get this to happen, instead of the 6 times that you tried to make it happen and it didn't work. I don't know.
Well, it's a big part of this that's really hard to teach, like the business acumen of really good cold calling, is understanding what motivates people. What motivates people are things that will get them hired, fired, or promoted. So, at the very end, that's what's going to motivate them. If they don't think this is something that will do one of those 3 things, which comes from the result of making changes to solve problems, right? Sure. They got a problem, they got a goal they want to meet, they have an issue that's preventing that, or they have a goal they want to meet and they don't know how to get there. You present a solution. That's going to get them hired, fired, or promoted. So interpersonally, there's things that drive people at work, and that's what drives them at work. This is what's different about B2B and B2C sales, right?
Oh yeah.
B2B sales is all about how do I make more money at my job or get a different job.
I talked to a guy, service guy again, and again, it's about listening too, right? And what I heard him say to me as he talked through his workflows and his process and how he does things, and even though he has a small team and may not need the software, he could do everything in Excel or whatever it is. And he actually told me he built code on top of Excel. And he sounds like, if you listen to this guy on the phone, you'd be like, dude, he sounds like he's, from the sticks in Oklahoma or something. And he was talking to me about coding in Excel. I'm like, shoot, I don't even do that. Right. Anyways, so he's like a pump, like he's a mechanical pump engineer kind of guy, not like an engineer, but like a tradesman.
Yeah.
Not swinging the hammer, but he's the guy working on the pumps, like a plumber, essentially.
Sure.
And I was like, wow, like that's pretty awesome of you, right? But it's like he took my call and he said, I'm not the real decision maker, but he's the one in the trenches, right? And so he was willing to, tell me how to make his life better. But he said, he's like, because I'm doing a lot of Excel stuff, he goes, and I heard what he said, he goes, that he's in on sometimes Saturday and Sunday. And so I had an opening right there. I go, well, let me ask you a question. If I can solve that and have you not come in on Saturday every week and be able and have to do those reports, would it be worth sitting down 15 minutes and checking it out?
Yeah.
And he was like, absolutely, right? So when you tap into something that actually means something to somebody, whether it be it money or family time nowadays, right? That's really important. But I want to, we're getting close to the end or almost over the hour, which I love. I knew this was going to happen, but I do want to get into this and try to stick to our format. This is Hump Day, everybody, and it is one of the hardest days of the week, right? For me, it's the longest day of the week. I feel like I think Wednesdays to me have always been that day to really push over the top, like try to hit your goal for the week on Wednesday. If your goal is whatever it might be, activations, meetings, deals, whatever, if you can get it done on Wednesday, you're fantastic. And that's why I work till, really late at night on Wednesday. I feel like I could start to slow down towards the end of the week if I stay up late on Wednesday nights or whatever. But I feel like that's the day of the week that really pushes. And what do I do that day that's any different than any other day, but except, eat good and drink a lot of water. And I've been drinking lemonade tonight. But my biggest hack to get through the day is knowing that that the week is not over, but knowing that if I can get to that goal, like most of the goal, 90% of the goal by Wednesday, then I feel great going into the end of the week. Or at the very least, I know I can go over the goal, and my mindset is just clear. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are the grind days, and if you can get it done in those 3 days, you're looking at a really good time going into the weekend. So that's my hack for getting over the hump.
I like it.
It's not a hack, but whatever.
Well, so here's my tip. It's sort of a cold calling tip, but it's just something that we need to remind ourselves. No matter how good you are at cold calling, use a script. If you're not using a script, try pulling it up tomorrow. Have structure to the way you're having conversations, and that's how you can improve on your structure over time. Now, not every piece of a cold call, we could like start a whole other hour and talk about scripts, right?
Oh yeah,
forget about around it. I'm a script geek, like the rest of them, like as good as a script geek as anybody else out there. But just the fact of the matter is, if you try to keep variables as consistent as you can through conversations, you can have more scientific assumptions and learnings and observations. Science is when we can hold things constant and change one or two things at a time.
Right.
Sales is art and science. Once again, it's a long conversation. We'll end it with 30 seconds on it. But the art and science of sales and outbound, you need to have that artistic element, the ability to be an interesting person, to get people talking, to have good tone, pace, volume, and energy. But you need to be able to deduct and deduce things from what you're doing. But you have to keep things constant in order to learn from what you're doing. So hold variables constant, use a script, and grind.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on. I want to leave leave off too with just a little note about like, it's interesting because, um, especially with scripts, like, I always look, I would write out the script on a PDF, like on a Google Doc, whatever. And then as it continues to evolve, right, I make a little bit notes and I score it and say, okay, will this work? Like, today I had 9 conversations and I had 7 of them went really almost perfect down this, for a few hiccups, or I missed this note, or I missed this thing here, I could add here. And so like my Google Docs grows and it has all these, and I always put dates, so like when I like changed it, and it did, and it's funny if somebody looked at it, they think like, why do you keep rewriting the same thing over and over again and just changing one word? Why don't you just change it out? Because on Google you could do that and edit it and have all those things there. And I go, because I can't see it then, and like I might, right? So you want the clean version. I don't want all this stuff on. I would just be so confused. I want to know like what's the thing that's working right now, And so I think writing a script, like I'm just, I guess in my skill set and my level of talent here, I don't necessarily have to look at the script all the time, because I am scientific about it. Like the conversation's the same every single time. Yes. in a portion of it, right? The things that change and alternate is my opener, insofar as like, if there's something that I could relate, like where they live, the weather, whatever it is, right? Hurricane, you're in the hurricane area, like that's the other thing too, it's like to start a conversation, there's been times where I actually lost calls because I never even got into it with somebody about what I do or why I was calling. That we were joking back and forth about something to do with my name or his name or where he lives or this or that or the world, the economy, whatever it was. And like 12 minutes into the conversation, I was like, I didn't even tell you why I was calling. And then they're like, I can't really talk anymore. I gotta go. Well, I'll call you back later. You know what I mean? So like, I don't lose that guy. I live to call another day. But it's like, you gotta just like treat those conversations like conversations. I think actually, I was gonna say the hump, a conversation, but I called it a podcast. But thanks for being on the show tonight, Kevin. I really appreciate it, man. We gotta get together again and diatribe a little bit more. I'll have you. We'll do an afternoon show or something, and we'll just pop it in. But thanks for coming on, man. Last words about where people can find you.
LinkedIn, callingculture.com.
Nice.
Callingculture.com. Go check it out. Let me know what you think. If I can help your organization in any form of any things we talked about, let me know. Reach out.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks everybody for those who showed up and those who listen afterwards. This is The Hump. We're coming live every Wednesday at 5:30 in the evening. Love to get some feedback from you all. If it's too late or too early, or if it's a good time slot for y'all, I'd appreciate the feedback. Thanks, Jesse Lizak, for coming out. Thanks, my boy Zach was here. I couldn't see a lot of other people. Adam Andorovic, yeah, he's going to be on. He's coming on the show. I think he just actually changed the date with me later in the month. I think He's either coming on in December or 29th, I forget. Nice. We've got Jessie coming on. I think she's going to come on next week or the week after. I forgot. But I'm going to be on her show tonight, guys. Whiskey Wednesday. Well, it's called Riveting's Wednesday now. I'm coming live later tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, live with DJ Kim to talk about so what looks like some more marketing stuff and what have you, which is a little bit different for me. But we put it together because I've got some interesting thoughts, I hope, and we'll see what happens. But that'll be my time to talk a little bit more, hopefully. But I really appreciate you coming out, Kevin, man. It was a great show. And those of you guys who don't know Kevin, definitely give him a follow. And certainly y'all can follow me. I'm Marc Mac on LinkedIn. I appreciate everybody coming out. Peace.
All right.